everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode of No Party Preference. My name's Josh. Here today with good buddy Adam. And now that we're doing these shorter intros, it's much more difficult to not curse in the first 60 seconds of the video for YouTube. So we're now further handicapping ourselves.
It's like trying not to say the F word when you're in a professional setting.
Yeah, but then you just do it anyways.
Or saying Riz or Glizzy.
Oh man, I wonder if those words are flagged.
I hope not.
Well,
yeah.
Whatever. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about, as I'm sure you've gathered from the title, 2008 all over again. It's like 2008, an economic odyssey. Here we go. It's going to happen again in 2025. And for those that don't know, weren't alive, or don't remember the 2008 crisis, essentially what happened, and this is important to understand what happened then to understand what's happening now. So basically back then you had all these banks writing loans for like several years previously to 2008, writing home mortgage loans at what they called an ARM mortgage, which is an adjustable rate mortgage, an ARM. All right. And so it would start out at like 0% or like 1%, and your payment would be fucking super low. And they would be selling people that were, you know, not to disparage anyone, but like people that were McDonald's fast food workers, they'd be selling them $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 houses because the payment was with zero down, because the payment was so low until the rate adjusted. And so what would happen is it would get you in, and it would get into a house, and it would give you 5 years to figure out, okay, I got to get another job that pays more or whatever. Because when my mortgage cranks up to the real 9 or 10% interest rate, my house payment's going to go from like $900 to like $4,500.
All right. So do they tell you that? I mean, when that happened, did they tell people that your interest would, skyrocket? Because I mean, it's predatory. It's obviously predatory.
And I don't think that they were telling people that to the certain extent, which is how they were able to get away with it for so long. So they do this, and then they realize, oh shit, these fuckers aren't going to be able to make their mortgage payments once the rate adjusts up. So they started doing these things. The bank started repackaging these loans as debt, and they would repackage and sell them to other banks or other corporations as investments, and they were called mortgage-backed securities. And basically what it was is they'd take Adam's February payment, Josh's March payment, Jimmy's April, May, June. They'd take payments out of every single thing, and they'd package them into a thing, and then they would resell it. So then they would say, okay, we know that these upcoming payments they're at the $900 a month or whatever. And then we would sell it to them being like, oh, if you buy future payments at the $4,500 level, we'll sell those to you for like $1,000. So then they're selling the future payment that they knew that motherfuckers weren't going to be able to pay when the adjustment went up. And so then that company who purchased it from the bank, the original mortgage lender, they purchased that payment. They would then repackage a bunch of them in multiple different ways and sell them to other banks. So then everybody was making money along the way selling these things. Now, what ended up happening is when it came to these larger balloon payments and people weren't able to make the payments, then all these guys had to go down the line, and it stops with the last guy at the end of the line. He's the one that is like, oh shit, I'm fucked. Like, I'm not, if no one and everyone down the line has no way to pay you. So then the guy at the end of the line, it's clearly the guy at the end of the line goes out of business. Like, that's how it works, because they invested so much. All right. So that's the gist of how the 2008 financial crisis happened. Okay. It was because of adjustable rate mortgages and things like that. So now we fast forward to 2025. Okay. You think, okay, it's been like fucking 8 or 17 years or whatever. We've learned from our mistakes. We're not going to go down this road again. All right. Well, here we are back to square one with these things that are now called back floating rate loans. All right. So a back floating rate loan is essentially when you give a large loan to a business at an adjustable rate. So it's not a mortgage, but it's like on your business to fuck, because if you can't pay it, then your business goes out. You got to go out of business. You got to declare bankruptcy. So after the last, 5 years, 10 years, BlackRock and all these major corporations have been purchasing large companies, right? You got like Joann's Furniture is the one that just recently happened. Party City is one that just recently happened. Hooters is another one that just recently happened, that they're now getting purchased by these huge investment firms and then going out of business. And so part of the reason for that is because what these people are doing, that these large companies are doing, they are saying, hey, we've got bad debt on our side. Because if you look at Joann, Hooters, just as two examples, Joann Furniture and Hooters, those two companies, at least Joann's, 95% of their stores were profitable, all right, during the last 5 years, and even currently to this day. Why would they have to close? This company bought them. If your stores are profitable, why would you have to fucking close? And the reason people don't understand is because these companies, when they bought these, they took out a shit ton of fucking loans to buy these things. And then they took all that loan money and other loan money from other assets that they had, and they would dump it onto the books of these new companies that they had. So then they're like, okay, cool. We need to cut costs everywhere so that we can then replace it with these, and then maybe it'll break even. And if not, fuck it, we'll declare bankruptcy, and guess what? All this bad debt just fucks off and goes away because no one can pay it. The business goes out. They have no assets. It just goes away. And then everybody who was holding the bag gets fucked. Well, what they've been doing with these backfloating rate loans is they created these things called collateralized loan obligations, or CLOs. Okay. And basically what they are is it is packaging the monthly payments of various fucking backfloating rate loans into it's a mortgage-backed security, but for businesses, right? And so they've been doing this for the last like 5 years, and now we're getting to the point where like, oh shit, it's coming up where these are coming due, where the rate has adjusted, and now we're starting to see the house of cards fall again. It's happening slowly right now, but I don't know when the time frame of it going to actually hit hard. I feel like it's going to be sometime this year, because I feel like this last 6 months has been sort of like a little preview. And then if you have all this bullshit with the tariffs and all this shit coming into play, well, that just puts further pressure on these companies to like, okay, we definitely can't pay these loans back now. And once the rate adjusts to the full interest rate payment, we are fucking screwed. And so they've leveraged out. This was the problem that happened in 2008. They leveraged out that January monthly payment 15 times. It's been leveraged out 15 times to 15 different corporations who've bought it as debt. And the big problem now is what they're doing. They've been selling these collateralized loan obligations as good debt to pension funds. And so a massive amount of these pension funds, that like 401ks, government pension funds, all these retirement funds that exist, have invested heavily in these CLOs. And when the bag comes due, this time the pension funds are going to be the ones without any money, and they're going to be left with the bag of nothing at the end. And so
why would they invest in that, knowing that it's more or less what happened in 2008, except for business?
You saw The Wolf on Wall Street, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So all those dudes that are in that financial world, they're like that. Okay. Maybe not all of them, but most of them are. And they're salesmen. They are selling you some shit, and and if they sell it good enough, people will buy it. And that's clearly what they're like, listen, man, I'm sure they're telling people it ain't like last time. Because how would any person who has any minute, and again, I'm borderline retarded, okay? And I have a very minute scope of understanding of the economy, all right? And I'm probably the worst person to be talking about this, but I feel like I can kind of take the information and break it down to something that's understandable for most people. But with that being said, if you came to me and you were like, hey, we got these things that we called backfloating rate loans, I'd be like, wait a minute, what the fuck's a backfloating rate? What does that mean? Well, eventually they'd have to tell me, oh, it's an adjustable rate loan. Oh yeah, no, I'm good, bro. I know where this ends up. I don't want to invest in that. So you think anyone with minute level of economic literacy would be able to say, okay, that's a bad idea, I'm not going to do that. But because these guys are such great salesmen, they sold all this shit as, hey, And they sold it to them as good debt. They didn't sell it to them as bad debt because they're like, businesses pay their loans, right? Like that's a hell of a sales pitch when you're going to a pension. And if you can get 6 to 8% on your return of buying these things, and you're going to get a 6 to 8, maybe even a 10%, or who knows, even higher if you're buying the adjustable rate portion. Yeah, you might get a huge fucking payday out of this, and you're just thinking, okay, cool. It's the short term memory loss problem, and people are just like, oh, cool, this is a way I can make a quick buck. And all these get rich quick schemes in the financial world, they all end up like this. They all end up turning into like Bernie Madoff Ponzi schemes. And the fact that it's going to happen again, or it's already happened, like they've been doing it, and now it's probably going to lead to another financial crisis again, is fucking insane. But guess what happens? Every time they do that, the people at the top of these huge banks, they get richer because guess what happens? The government doesn't fucking let them fail. The government didn't let Citibank or fucking Bank of America or Wells Fargo. Money. They just printed more money, they went rates to 0%, and I would imagine they'll eventually have to do negative interest rates, to get the economy going again when this fucking shit all crashes and falls, and people end up buying all this shit. So somebody asked, because I was explaining this to someone else, and they asked me basically like, what is the point of all this then? Like, what is the purpose? And so here's where the conspiracy theory part comes in. I kind of have a feeling that the reason this is happening is because most people now, like us, we're in our mid to late 30s, right? We still got another 20 to 30 years to go in terms of like being able to work.
Yeah.
You've got people now that are in their 50s, early 60s that are getting ready to retire. Well, if you're talking all this shit about bringing manufacturing back because you're putting in all these tariffs and all this nonsense, where are you going to get the workers to do that, right? And Apple, like we talked about in that last episode, oh, they're just going to use robots or whatever. Well, if they use robots, no one's going to have any money. Well, I think I figured out the solution inadvertently by discovering this thing. And the solution to that is, yes, you can't pay some asshole $20 an hour to make an iPhone, because then iPhones will be 30 grand, right? When you're paying a Chinaman 18 cents a day, right? You could, there's just, the math doesn't work on that. So if you take and you bankrupt everyone's pensions, if you fucking remove that, there's no security anymore with retirement, because you can't live off of Social Security, and they're gutting that currently right now anyways. That may not exist as it sits in 2 years. So if you get rid of everyone's private 401ks and their pensions, if you fucking have the bag get held with them, and they gotta fucking be like, hey, we're insolvent, and then the government says, hey, we're not gonna bail you guys out this time because we bailed you out back in 2008. We're not gonna do it this time. And they let these pension funds fail, then everyone's gonna be like, shit, if you're in your 50s, you can't retire. So you gotta work. So once you hit the max limit of your current job and you're basically gonna get pushed out, where are you gonna go? I know where you're going to go. You're going to go work in the factories for federal minimum wage, building all this shit so that you can maintain a roof over your head and you can eat. And this whole like situation seems to be that's the solution if you really think about it. And I don't agree that it's a good solution, but I can look at it from the perspective of, oh, these ultra rich corporate billionaires, and that's a great solution to them. You bankrupt everybody's retirement, forcing them to work for slave wages until they fucking die. And that's how you make iPhones be able to stay $900 or $1,100 or where the fuck they are.
Or you have people savvy enough that are looking into this themselves and saying, well, I can't fucking have my money in 401ks. Like, I'd rather fucking put it all on gold at this point.
Yeah.
And just try to preserve the value that I have of my money stored in gold.
Could possibly be. And here's the other thing, too, that they're talking about. They're talking about taking all. That's why Trump's been talking all this shit about going to Fort Knox and finding out where the gold's at and looking at the gold. They have literally said they're pushing forward a plan to take all of the gold in Fort Knox and purchase Bitcoin with it. And I read a thing the other day that there is a very decent chance that Bitcoin is actually run by the Russian government. And I don't know if it's true, but goddamn, if they bought all the fucking Bitcoin with gold, and then the whoever runs Bitcoin decided, fuck it, we're gonna crash Bitcoin, you bankrupt America.
Well, there's no person that runs Bitcoin, but if you control what they call like the hash or whatever,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
because
because who knows who fucking controls that? And it could be a government entity. I would imagine it would be, which is how it hasn't been banned yet. But it would be fucking insane if that's what happened. They bought Bitcoin with all the gold in Fort Knox, and then they said, oh, you know what? Now we're going to... by the way, the next day, Bitcoin crashes to $1 or whatever. And then, the United States government's now bankrupt. So who knows? But back to this thing. I do think that it's going to hit hard. And one of the other problems that we're already seeing right now, as you said earlier, and is part of this, is this fucking financing fucking fast food, financing pizza. Klarna is easy ways to pizzas. You can get a pizza at Little Caesars for $7. Why the fuck? Why are you financing pizza? And what's crazy is I've been reading people who use these things like Affirm and Klarna and like whatever. And they talk about how like, oh yeah, it's cool how like you go and like it starts off with a low payment. It's kind of like an adjustable rate loan. They just say, oh, we'll spread this out over whatever. We'll spread this $7 out over
5
fucking
years.
I don't know if it's 5 years, but it's like, let's say it's like 2 months. It's like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's $3 a week, which you got to pay. Well, at the end of it, you just paid $40 for this fucking pizza. Come on, man. Like, what is wrong with you people? And then what they're doing is they're taking those collateralized loan obligations, they're repackaging them and selling them to people. So then if I decided, and now I don't know how it works with Klarna or Affirm, but
okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So those packages that are being sold, you're saying they're going to BlackRock's buying them?
No.
Or they're selling them?
They're the ones that are like getting the loan. They're getting like the loans for the banks.
Okay.
And then the bank is going like, here's all this money.
Yeah.
And then the bank's saying, we're going to make this collateralized loan obligation. And then we're going to go to another bank and be like, hey, dog, how you guys feel about buying some of our CLOs? And they go, oh hell yeah, dog, we'll buy some of those.
Okay.
And then that bank takes them and goes to some other bank. And then it goes to like 18 different banks. They buy and sell. And then they go to like eventually the guy at the end of the line, a couple corporations here and there, a couple financial investment firms. And then you get these pension funds who are at the end of like every single one of these. And then they eventually buy it, and then they go, "Oh, cool!" And then they get left holding the bag at the end because, again, the banks will probably get bailed out by the government again. Like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they don't give a fuck. They'll get their money because the government will give it to them. If we don't, if the fucking company who owes the money doesn't, and then that's just what they're doing. So it's gonna end horrifically. I don't know if it's going to be something that's going to affect house prices because there's not a lot of people talking about this stuff right now. And I think it's out of fear because people don't necessarily either understand what it exactly is, or they're like, yeah, I ain't fucking talking about this shit because it's too much. It's too much like the past.
Well,
and
how would it affect housing? Would it be that people simply couldn't afford homes to begin with? And
well, it would be the fact that, yeah, a lot of people would lose their jobs because all these, like, obviously anybody who's working at like Joann's, Party Cities, right? If you're like a manager, a full-time employee, a manager on salary or something, you're probably making pretty good money. Well, now you're out of a job. Now you got to go find a fucking job. So where are you going to go? If all these major companies start having that problem and they start going out of business, now you got a large amount of the workforce that's basically unemployed. And where are they going to go? There aren't any jobs for them to go hit. Now, if all the fucking pension funds get hit, oh, guess what? Apple decides they're going to open a fucking factory in Cupertino saying, hey, we're going to open up a factory here and you can come work for $7.25 an hour because we're going to California to change the fucking minimum wage law. I mean,
it's not crazy.
That's not crazy.
It's
that's not
crazy.
out of the realm of possibility. In an emergency measure, they would probably do it. And that's where this whole thing, that's what sucks about this whole shit, is all this stuff gets done and swept under the rug as it's an emergency. Like the housing crisis bailout of the banks. Well, this is an emergency. This is a once in a lifetime. Why did it have to
come at our expense, though?
I agree. It shouldn't have come at our expense. But that's when it came down to the final buck of like, okay, well, if the government doesn't back this up, the banks are going to fail and the economy is going to be crushed.
Yeah.
Because if you have Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citigroup, if they go out of business, if they close down, that means like we are going to have rioting in the streets. Like that's where we're to the point of. And then there's going to come a choice. Once all this shit collapses and your pensions are gone, there's going to be two options. There's either going to be go work in the factory until you die or grab a pitchfork and light some shit on fire. Like that's basically the only two options we're going to be left with.
Yeah, and it also like consolidates power to things that are already big here. Like you were saying, it's Apple, it's Amazon. Like Joann's was probably going to be replaced by Amazon because they probably have knickknacks and all that bullshit fabrics and.
Well, like Katie loves Joann's, right? Like, because she likes sewing and she does all that shit. She does those little projects. Okay, so she does all that stuff. Well, I mean, we went and looked, and on Amazon right now, it's more expensive to buy the shit on Amazon. But Joann ain't gonna be here in like 6 months because all the stores are closing. So like in 6 months, they're gonna have no more stores. So Amazon will be the only option. And if Amazon slowly starts creeping the price up, well, guess what? It doesn't matter. They're the only one you can go buy this shit from now. So yeah, you got Amazon, Walmart are going to basically be like your two fucking. Walmart will be your in-person big box store that you'll be only basically left with. Amazon will be your online retailer.
Well, I mean, fuck, man. If you want to have a whole nation of slaves and everything, I mean, shit, you might as well put them on fucking welfare too, because nobody can afford anything. Like, it's counterintuitive to make people poor because you will have a workforce that is just living to work to live, and it's like, well, if nobody can afford to buy anything, like, why would they fucking turn to your business? Like,
well, think about this though. Like, all right, you look at the medieval times, right?
Yes.
Medieval times, there were at most everybody minus the top 1% was essentially a peasant. Yeah, maybe you had like some smaller like lords in the middle here who were like kind of considered like your middle class. But basically everyone was a goddamn peasant, unless you were the fucking king or you were somehow related to the king or whoever the monarch was. You're basically a peasant. So peasants, what did they do? They tilled the fields. They did the work so that all these fuckers could eat, and then they could have the leftovers. And there's this fucking thing that I heard, this might be the greatest fucking thing that I've ever heard. It's about trickle-down economics, which is kind of like what that is. It was back in the day before Reagan retermed it this trickle-down economics. It was called the horse and sparrow theory. And the horse and sparrow theory basically says that if you feed a horse a fuck ton of oats, because apparently horses, they can't, it's like we can't process corn skins. They can't process like the oats. They suck the nutrients out, but then the oat still stays.
Yeah.
So if you feed a horse 1,000 pounds of oats, then all the sparrows will be able to eat because the sparrows will come eat the leftover oats out of the shit. And that's kind of what trickle-down economics is. It's like, oh, we're going to get put all these resources into this one thing, and then everyone else can kind of have the byproduct or like the leftovers of that. And that's kind of where we're going back to. We're going back to this peasantry level.
Yeah, but I'm saying like, and maybe I'm missing the picture, but if a car company exists and everybody's fucking poor, but they all need to drive to work, which means the public transportation had to get a lot better, which is not going to happen because that'd be a public sector fucking thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure car companies want freeways so that you can you purchase a car so you can go to fucking work.
Yeah.
But if you can't afford the fucking car, like, how is the company going to make money, you know?
Yeah,
that's like literally anything. Like, that's any other business.
Right.
Like, if nobody can, like, in order to have a entire nation enslaved or whatever, right? Well, shit, maybe it won't even matter because it's like the only thing that will matter is that you have food in front of you and water, and that'll be how you exist.
Well, and if you look at all these top percentage billionaires and these people at the top, what have they done? They've invested all their money and leveraged all their money into purchasing farmland, right? So if you have the food supply already there, you can hire people to protect it because people would be willing to protect that stuff of yours in order for their family to be able to eat, right? That's where you get into this situation where they're going to collapse the whole thing. They don't give a fuck. They'll collapse the whole thing, and then when you are essentially the king, you control everything.
All right, but then there's a skill set that people have, whether that's tilling, like farming or agriculture, because there is a disparity between tech billionaires that only know how to do things with in relation to computers. Then you have people that have the skill set that know how to do farming and shit. They're not going to do it themselves. You have these people. I don't know, but I don't know.
Well, and that's when you get the peasantry class and you say, hey, in exchange for you doing this work for me, I will let you have your cut of food so you and your family can eat because I'm producing way more than I could need to eat. I'm going to keep 95% of it, though. I'll let you guys share this 5%. which otherwise it'd be 0.
Yeah, but they also have the leverage because they have the skill set.
Right, but there's so many people with the skill set. Well, that's cool. If you don't want to do it, I'm sure there's someone out there that will. Or there's someone out there who would be willing to learn and do it for even less. And that's the difference. That's in desperate times, people will do crazy shit.
Or maybe it'll be like Lockheed Martin, where they divide everything up. So one person will till the soil, and then there will be one person that waters it. And then,
yeah.
So then it's all like compartmentalized, and nobody actually knows how the entire process of like farming.
And then over time, farming is a lost art because it's been top secret compartmentalized. Yeah, basically, yeah. That's pretty much what it's going to turn into. So, anyways, 2008 all over again. I don't foresee this ending well, especially with the way that things are going with the tariffs and the increased pressure. April 2nd, we're getting more tariffs again that are going to affect everyone. Canada, Mexico, China, fucking everybody.
That's on top of the fact that China, Japan, and South Korea have formed a new alliance, I suppose. I don't remember if it was like economic. I imagine it's economic, but now we're slowly getting pushed out of the picture, dude. It's very problematic.
Yeah, it is very problematic, but who knows? So, anyways, all right, that's pretty much all I had. So, you got anything else?
No.
All right, cool. Well, anyways, that'll be it. I guess we'll catch you guys on the next one.